I don't know what Harry will do. He seems to me to be very ill and to need help immediately. Whoever is his therapist isn't doing very well, because he seems to have no idea of what is okay to say and absolutely what is not.
There's a reason certain stories catch fire even when the paperwork exists. It isn't always about truth. It's about optics, timing, and the space between what people expect to see and what they're actually shown. That space is where whispers get louder than facts. And when those whispers circle the royal world, around babies, bloodlines, and legal battles, every headline turns into a spotlight. The question isn't just who's right, it's why the rumors keep winning. One TV segment, a raised eyebrow, a few carefully chosen words about secret legal moves, and the internet did what the internet does. It detonated. Clips were cut, pauses were slowed, subtitles did more talking than the guest. Within hours, threads were stacked with claims that sounded bold enough to be true, but vague enough to be unfalsifiable. Here's what didn't go viral: the tedious, boring, unglamorous reality of public records. Archie's birth certificate exists. It names the hospital. It was reported at the time and photographed by agency lenses like any other high-profile record. Lilibet's certificate exists too. A state document, not a rumor, not a screenshot of a screenshot. The Guardian carried the birth announcement. Outlets obtained and published the certificate's details: paper, ink, dates, signatures, facts. So if the paperwork is there, why did the storm keep growing? Because in the royal world, information isn't just told, it's staged. For decades, the public got used to a ritual: the hospital steps, the bright flash of photographers, the mother in that first post-birth moment, the official bulletin pinned up for the world. A familiar sequence equals comfort. Archie's rollout didn't follow that choreography. No Lindo wing tableau, no classic steps photo. Instead, a modern, curated approach. Selected images later, controlled moments, limited access. Perfectly valid for a private family, but different from the royal pattern people had memorized. And when a pattern breaks, the expectation gap opens. Into that gap rush the theories, the explainers, the anonymous accounts. Not because the facts changed, but because the optics did. That gap is where narratives get rewritten. Add litigation and the algorithm goes turbo. Harry has made the British press his battlefield. On the law, he's not just swinging, he's scoring. He won damages in the Mirror Group case after the court found unlawful news gathering was routine for years. He settled portions. Other cases continue against publishers of The Sun and the Daily Mail, with schedules that stretch into the future and costs that make headlines on their own. These aren't whispers. They're rulings, filings, dates on a docket. But here's the paradox. Even a righteous lawsuit can look like secrecy from the outside. Legal letters are private. Discovery is slow. Courts talk in months, while social media refreshes every second. The harder you push in court, the more the crowd assumes you're hiding something. It's unfair, but it's also predictable. And once the legal lens focuses, every timeline gets picked apart. Nothing feeds speculation like a paused frame and a confident caption. Edit a clip, add a lowered voiceover, freeze on a half smile. Suddenly, you're not watching events, you're watching an interpretation. And interpretation always sells. Look at the hard edges, though, and the anchors are dull. The date on the London birth registry, the Santa Barbara County certificate, the public announcement carried by mainstream outlets. These don't spike engagement because they're not dramatic. They're just there. Yet the more boring the anchor, the easier it is for the current to carry people away. That's how timelines get turned into riddles. Not because the calendar changed, but because conjecture earns more clicks than context. And then, inevitably, the word that turns chatter into a national sport appears: succession. Say line of succession, and suddenly everyone's a constitutional scholar. The conversation vaults from Instagram reels to the future of the crown in one jump cut. But constitutions don't move at internet speed, and the line of succession doesn't tilt because a rumor trends. It moves on documents, statutes, established procedures. The verifiable record, birth certificates, official communications, legal recognition, anchors the status quo. Those records exist. They have for years. And no, a viral thread doesn't erase them. Does public curiosity vanish because paperwork is solid? Not at all. If anything, certainty invites a more pointed question. Why do questions linger? Silence used to be strength. In today's attention economy, silence is a Rorschach test. People project onto it. Was it strategy, pride, exhaustion, or just a line in the sand? Our kids are not content. There's also the collision between brand and throne. Royals are institutions as much as individuals. Modern celebrity is something else entirely. Curated, monetized, meticulously managed. When those two forces intersect, every choice gets a double meaning. A privately managed photo becomes, to some, a coded statement about tradition. An absence on the hospital steps becomes, to others, a rejection of the script. Add a few years of mutual resentment between palace and press, stir in a couple of blockbuster interviews, and you've built a perfect echo chamber where every gesture confirms what someone already believed. Meanwhile, the court calendar keeps moving. Legal time runs on filings and hearing dates, not hashtags. The Mirror Group case delivered findings and damages. Additional claims settled on costs. The Sun/News Group litigation has its own track and milestones. The Associated Newspaper's claims are slated for a full trial stretch, with estimates splashed across business pages, because the figures are enormous. The theme is consistent. This isn't a prince who walked away from a fight with the media. It's a prince who moved the fight into court. That choice has consequences, good ones and hard ones. Good, because the only arena that can actually punish proven wrongdoing is a court. Hard, because the path to vindication is slow, technical, and wildly vulnerable to misinterpretation by people who prefer fireworks to footnotes. Which brings us to the real question behind all the noise. Proof and perception live on different clocks. Proof takes time. It lives in ledgers, in sworn statements, in state records no one clicks. Perception lives in the infinite now. It feeds on cuts, captions, and the performance of certainty. When a commentator hints carefully at hidden legal maneuvers, it sounds electrifying. When a state record sits quietly in a file, it doesn't. Yet the record still counts. It counted the day it was signed, and it counts now. Archie's certificate names his place of birth. Lilibet's certificate names hers. The public announcements exist. The coverage exists. The legal actions that actually matter against publishers who cross lines exist in pages and pages of judicial language that never trends. So why does the narrative keep swinging back to doubt? Because doubt is addictive. It promises you're about to discover what others missed. It flatters the audience into believing they're part of the reveal. It moves units, gets views, and turns ordinary TV segments into cultural bonfires. And once the bonfire's burning, even a bucket of facts looks small. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When rumor picks a fight with records, the records don't shout, they endure. They sit still, they wait out the storm. And in the long run, that's how reality wins. Not by going viral, but by refusing to move. There's a cost to all of this. The spectacle, the furious threads, the TV smirks and sly phrasing and recycled clips. The cost is that children's names become content. Their paperwork becomes currency. And a family's attempts to draw a line get spun as evidence of a secret. Maybe it's time to admit that some narratives survive not because they're true, but because they're profitable. So here's my take. If we're going to talk about proof, let's talk about what's provable. If we're going to talk about secrecy, let's remember what's already public. And if we're going to talk about power, let's be honest. The loudest voice isn't always the one that's right. Sometimes it's just the one that learned how to monetize doubt.